Today, I get to introduce you to two wonderful new dads. They have a boy and a girl, twin babies born via surrogacy. Pasan and Damian are my guests on the show today, and we talk about all of the ins and outs of doing domestic surrogacy and international surrogacy, some of the pros, some of the cons of each, and how to just sometimes take that leap and trust that all will go the way that you desperately hope that it will. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of being able to introduce you to Pasan and Damian, who are proud new papas. Welcome to the four of you. Please tell us who you are and about the members of your family.
Thank you so much, Sam. So my name is Pasan, and I'm Damian, and we've got River and Liko, which you can't see, but you'll be able to see on our pages.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will link to your Instagram in the show notes for sure. Tell us, how did Damian and Pasan become a couple to decide that they wanted to become parents?
You go, Damian.
Okay, good. So I was actually, Damien speaking here. I was studying at university in Cambridge, and I was in my final year. And I actually met Pasan by chance encounter in Cambridge, really. We got talking, we had a few drinks, and we got on really well. Pasan was actually visiting the university town looking at, was it PhDs you're looking at?
Yeah, so I wanted to do a PhD in education, and I was doing some research, and I went to the universities to see what I could do, if this is plausible. And then once the workshop was over, went to the nearby pub, and then, yeah.
Rest is history. But I remember that Pasan was at the time teaching and working in London, and I accepted a job at the time up in Derby with Rolls-Royce, so not too close to London really at all.
Yeah. So just in terms of geography, it's quite far.
So it probably wasn't really going to amount to much, is what we thought at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember going back and talking to my housemates about this great guy I'd met, someone quite different really to anyone I'd met before. Passon actually told me months or years down the line that he'd actually gone back and said something similar to his friends.
Oh, love it.
No, actually, that's not true. You didn't hear that from me. You heard it from my friend who we met later on, who told you that. I would never admit to that.
Right. Your ego. Need to keep your ego in check, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, we stayed in touch, but it was just the odd message here and there. Until my plans changed, and I was made an offer to take a job in London, which I did, and yeah, got almost straight back in touch with Pasan when I found my feet and started dating, and the rest is history.
Love that. And how long have the two of you been together since you moved back to London, I suppose?
2014. So when would that be? 10 years? No,
You're the maths teacher.
Yeah. Just over 10, 11 years. Yeah.
Nice.
Since we got together.
And how long on your path in your relationship did the two of you start talking about having a family and becoming parents?
I think for me, I've always wanted kids. So I think maybe the first conversation I probably would have even had is, do you want children?
That's right. I need to know if I'm crossing you off the list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These things are important. Yeah. I'm not getting any younger, and I need to make sure I'm making the right choices.
And I think my answer was sort of probably, yeah. It was something which I think sort of like growing up, and even actually as late as sort of whilst at university, I think I'd grown up at a time in a geography where I hadn't seen gay parents around.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it wasn't something which I was necessarily destined or even sort of entitled to. I think I almost felt. In fact, I actually remember as late as my second year of university, someone asking me that question, would you have children? Would you adopt? And me answering, I don't think so. I don't know how fair that would be on the future children, which I think sort of goes to show, first of all, just sort of how far society has come in that time, or certainly how far maybe I've come and the people I've been around. And it's great that we live in a time where it is, normalized, where anyone and everyone can have a family. And I feel really lucky to have sort of met Pasan, who sort of sent me down that track and sort of pulled me with him on that. Because after we started talking about children, and I realized it absolutely was something I wanted and was something I could have, we were adamant that was going to happen, and we feel so lucky and privileged to be where we are right now with our two beautiful little children.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is true. And there's been a number of people I've spoken to over the years who, in their back of their minds, children, I mean, are there, but you have to navigate your queerness and how you live queer in the world. And then it feels as though it could be overwhelming or daunting or just not even possible to become parents. I mean, you're missing gametes on one side or the other, depending on how you were assigned at birth. And so it becomes something that a lot of people, I think, Damian, your thought process is very similar to many people. It just doesn't, you don't put it in your mind as being something that you want per se, because how would that even happen anyway? So there's other things to focus on. I love that Pasan was kind of able to, no, this is a good idea. Well, let's work on this. We'll figure this out, because the two
That's
of
not
you
the only good idea.
you're radiating, though, the two of you with these big beaming smiles. Clearly parenthood is agreeing with you, so it was the right decision. You have a beautiful social media presence so that you're sharing your story of your family with the world. You've made the decision to become parents. How did you decide on surrogacy over adoption?
So I think for me, as I said, I've always wanted children, and I've always wanted to make sure that they were biological. So adoption was never a thing that crossed my mind. And when Damien said maybe adoption, again, it wasn't, I said, fine, it could be a contingency if it really doesn't happen, because I definitely want children. And for me, I think I might be in the minority, and like Damien, if I want something, I will make sure I get it. Growing up in Sri Lanka, I don't have representatives. So I need to be my own representative, and I need to make sure that I do and get what I want, and make sure I work hard. So I'm a vice principal at the moment as well. Again, there's not many Asian looking vice principals in the UK. So these things were important. So I think for me, I've always wanted my own or my partner's biological children for us. So for me, that was my thought process.
And as Pastor mentioned, I would have been really happy with children from anywhere, adopted. My own DNA, Passan's own DNA. It just didn't really matter to me, and still doesn't. And that's okay that we sort of have different priorities on that level. However, a few of my friends have sort of looked into adoption. Heterosexual couples, not that really makes any difference. And I've sort of learned a lot about the process through them, and those couples have both since sort of moved away from the idea for various reasons. Some of friends of ours down south in London were also looking to adoption. They were a homosexual couple. They both worked with children, and were actually told by the local the services that adoption probably wasn't for them, and they themselves should consider surrogacy, really. I think based on the fact that they were both working full time, albeit in schools, and the sort of children who were likely coming through the system would need someone who could essentially
Stay at home,
step away from their careers, and neither of them really wanted to do that. Now we sort of haven't, we don't know whether one of us, if in that situation, would want to sort of move away from our careers either. But we sort of definitely realized that adoption is, as much as parenting is, massive, massive thing, no matter which route you take.
Mhm.
Sort of adoption and fostering it just has those extra complexities, which, we didn't explore further at that point.
Fair. And I mean, at the end of the day, one of the things that you do have the option of learning in a case like looking at adoption is that there are many children who are in the system to be adopted who do have extra needs, and you get to make a conscious decision about where you are in your life to be able to help navigate that, right? And there are lots of people who have lived experience with family or friends or something who feel that they want to support a child who has those complex needs, who needs that extra support, and other people who feel that they can't, or they don't know how they would navigate it, and that kind of thing. So there is that piece that gives you the opportunity to give consideration to that I think a lot of other people who don't take the time about consciously thinking about how they're going to make their families necessarily give that same energy to, right?
We were asked that quite a lot. I've been asked by, I think sort of mainly people out of our age bracket, perhaps the next generation up, that I think really it's felt like a bit of a naive question. That the first question that's been asked to us when we said that we are going through surrogacy is, why don't you just adopt? We've been asked that a lot.
Yeah, so I think my response was, I mean, because we would like to have our biological children, just like any straight couple would. I mean, you wouldn't go ask that from a straight couple. So I don't think there's any malice in that question. I think it's just a conversation. It's a way to carry out the conversation. And then I think they're almost like, yeah, of course, there's nothing wrong with it. But I think that's the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, in a way, even when you're looking at parental leave, the parental leave is called adoption leave. So it's not called surrogacy leave in the UK. So my headmaster, I mean, as educated and as clever as he is, it was difficult for our whole organization to kind of process it, because the writing in the legal documents were very confusing and not straightforward. And even because I took the longer pay, it's called maternity pay. Obviously, I'm not a woman, so it's not maternity. So
Right.
it's kind of navigating the language as well. And I think we need to be patient, and we need to be empathetic. Like, no one's asking us to be kind of crude or cruel. They're just asking these questions. So we need to be answering them with patience. Like, no, it's not something, it's surrogacy that we want our biological children.
But I also think that a lot of people don't realize the number of children with complex needs that are in the system to be adopted either. That's a big question to ask. And you're right, they wouldn't ask a straight couple that. And if they did ask a straight couple that, would they just assume that a straight couple is any more prepared to work with a child who has complex needs if they have a job that they can't afford to leave and look after the child full time and things like that? Like, you're right. I don't think there's malice to it, but I think that there is often not a lot of thinking that goes with a lot of the questions that get asked. Maybe that's the way to say it.
It could also be the lack of information and awareness, because they might think like, well, I mean, obviously you're two men, so how would you go about it? Adoption is the first thing that comes to mind. So that could be the reason why as well. And then when you explain it, and then you say, oh, do you remember that episode in Friends with Phoebe? So I think that the popular culture makes a huge kind of difference. And I think that was way before their time as well, that episode. So I think that's a nice reference point, because that's exactly what we did. So the egg donor, we can talk about this more later, and the surrogate were different kind of people as well. So yeah.
Excellent.
I think Pasan's absolutely right. I mean, growing up, I'd only ever heard the term surrogacy in that episode of Friends. And that wasn't something that was open to men to have a wonderful surrogate help them. It was something which heterosexual couples had
access to. But I think in most countries, it's still surrogacy is still for heterosexual couples.
A lot of it.
In fact, there are lots of countries that weren't open to us for this very process because we were two men.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of countries in Europe. That still surprises me. I think here I sit in North America, and yes, I'm north of the border where things are going backwards. Although
Yeah,
I
what's
mean,
that about?
yeah, right, right. I just want to keep moving further north so I get further away from that in case it rubs off. I don't know. In any case, that's not what I mean. I've got some amazing and wonderful friends that are in the US who are terrified of the world. But
Yeah.
things do seem to be going backwards. But we often look across the pond and think, well, Europe's got it together. They're that much more forward thinking. They're that much more, and in some spaces they are, and in other places, I'm surprised when I hear, that surrogacy is illegal in some of the countries that it's still illegal in Europe, like France and Italy. Those are what we think of as being more forward thinking countries, and it's really sad that people that the opportunities are taken away from people before they've even really
Yeah.
happened, right? It is sad. So you've alluded to the fact that you used a gestational surrogate, which means you used a separate egg donor. How did you pick an egg donor? Did you have someone you know? Did you go through a bank? Did you search through a catalog? How did you do it?
So I think before we come to that, I think the process was a lot longer than that. So before that, we were trying to find a surrogate in the UK. In the
Okay.
UK, commercial surrogacy is illegal.
Right.
However, altruistic surrogacy is acceptable.
It's like here.
It's not binding, but it's allowed. It's fine. So in a way, we wanted to make sure that the child or the children would have some connection to the person who brought them up, etc., etc., because we thought that'll be important for the child. And we were thinking, it's not about us. We need to think of the child so that they have that bond. And we were doing this and we're fairly outgoing, extroverted people. And we joined all these groups on Facebook, where you kind of connect you post every single day, you go to socials every weekend, and we did that. And as you can imagine, with full-time jobs, he's head of maths, I'm an assistant head. It's quite busy, so trying to keep up with everything. And we also have a board game channel where we do content every other day as well. So life was busy, and we have 2 dogs. So for years and years and years, we kept looking and trying to connect. We didn't match with anyone, and we weren't exactly sure why. And there were wonderful people who were matching, and we were so happy for them. And we were celebrating this cause. We love it because we love celebrating with people. We want everyone to win. And we weren't thinking, oh, they're getting it well. We were thinking, they're getting it amazing. That'll be us as well. That was our thinking.
Yeah.
But there were also a lot of people that weren't matching, who were also brilliant. And I remember actually one time, one of the socials speaking to a lady who'd said that she'd been coming to these socials sort of every couple of weeks for the last 8-9 years, and she just hadn't matched. At no point had anybody said to her, I'd like to get to know you a bit better because I might be your surrogate. And I think that conversation was really
the tipping point for you.
A little bit. It was just, I remember going home and just being really sort of sad for her, for us, and just thinking like she was a fantastic and wonderful person. Just thinking, how has she been coming here for all of these years and is still no closer to start making that dream happen? Because I remember actually, it's coming back to me now. She sort of said, like, at some point, I'm just going to have to essentially cut my losses, just accept that,
both financially and mentally.
So yeah, I mean, and it was
just
really sad.
The amount of emotions, like every time you get ready to go to these events, you're thinking, today might be the day. Today might be the day. And we haven't gone to more socials, but every single social that we've been to, she's been there. So the fact that she's probably been there, and bless her, she's amazing. And she wasn't connecting. And what was the reason behind it? Because there's nothing legal, there's no one to take it to the side and say, look, here's the reason, here's what you're doing right, here's what you're doing wrong. There's no support there.
I think there's a large element of just chance, who you get talking to, and or who you don't, who sees you. But I mean, the thing is, I think also there just aren't, the numbers aren't in anyone's favors. There aren't really that many surrogates in the UK. And I think a lot.
This is despite the statistics where they're saying this many surrogates, this many, and here are the couples.
I think a lot of the surrogacy journeys that do happen in the UK and through a lot of the organizations actually tend to be with a very good friend of one of the IPs, or with a sibling or a family member of one of the IPs, and that's beautiful. You know, we didn't have anyone who sort of volunteered who knew us personally, which is why we were hoping to connect with someone who might be able to help us, who wasn't known to us before. But yeah, a lot of the teams we saw were a family member, and I think yeah, I think by the end we weren't sure we were going to be successful, because most of the teams we were seeing were family, and that's why we started exploring other options.
So did you look everywhere in the world? How did you narrow down your search? Because the world's a big place. So how do you narrow
The world
down your
is a big
search?
place.
So we knew America was very much surrogacy is a thing, commercial surrogacy. But we also realized we couldn't possibly afford American surrogacy because everything's
Yeah.
expensive in America. And
Yep.
one, it's far away. And then we heard that Canada was cheaper. But in terms of if you take into account the cost of the flights, the distance, that didn't kind of, the numbers
Yep.
didn't make sense to us. And then I think it's through these surrogacy groups. And by the way, we made so many very close friends through these surrogacy groups, so we have no regrets joining them.
Sure.
Everything happens for a reason, so we are so happy that we've met. And there are so many people who've seen us as well from those groups that have come and messaged us and say congratulations, so happy for you guys. So it's not a loss, but we just want everyone to have this family.
Yep.
And it's through one of those groups that we met someone who said, look, I went through this in Cyprus, and if you want, I can give you more information about the clinic I use. And then we started talking to them, and then we started talking to the clinic, and then we thought, it's more important for us to have the child than to have this child we don't have, and think about their future, if that makes sense, to think about the connection with the surrogate. At that rate, we were not going to have any child. So we thought,
Right.
we're going to have to put a pin on that and have
Sure.
the children first, and then think about that later.
Yep.
Obviously, they're going to have unconditional love. They're going to know the whole process. We're going to be completely honest with them as to where they've come from. They're going to be proud of where they've come from. There's not going to be any shame in where they've come from. It's more to celebrate it. And so we thought, because of that person, we explored Cyprus.
And then there's lots of organizations that do surrogacy here in Cyprus and wider Europe and the wider world. The organization that we were with, World Centre of Baby, I think actually, I want to say started in Ukraine, or maybe started in America actually, but a lot of their European work they did in Europe was initially in Ukraine, and sort of moved to Cyprus following the war. And there's sort of more organizations sort of every year, and we just didn't really know where to start looking at them. And what we were aware of is that some of them were scams. We were told of various organizations that just took your money and then you didn't hear from.
The scary part was someone messaged us on one of those Facebook groups saying, I've been looking as well, and here's something that worked for me, this clinic in Cyprus. And then when you looked at their profile, you could see, well, no, you haven't been looking. You haven't been trying to match with anyone here. You've only been here for 2 weeks. We could see you when you joined. And we could see how many posts you've done. One. And then they messaged us. And then when we spoke to the person who recommended us, saying, look, avoid them. They're a scam. They even spoke to us, actually. We even did a phone call conversation with them.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were just saying how it's been so tough for them. They've been looking, and you could see the groups that they've joined. You could see the messages that they posted because it's public, and you could see that they haven't.
Right.
But it didn't click to us because we were in desperate mode. Someone's reached out to us. Someone's speaking to us to help us. Yes, take all our money.
And talking about an organization that actually was very reasonably priced. And I think that's probably a bit of a message, a word of caution that someone said to us that we'll now say back, which is, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is true. And yet at the same time, like you say, Pasan, you're feeling desperate. You'll do whatever you need to do to
Yeah.
make this dream
Yeah.
come true. And if you can do it without also having to remortgage your house and everything else, then
And the thing is, these companies, these people they're not going to charge you a lot of money because they don't need to. They just need little bits of money from lots of people.
right.
It's like, oh, it's just $500. It's just $600. That's not a lot of money, but you do that, but it's still a scam. You're losing that money. So I
That's right.
think, and as parents, oh, do you know what? In the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of money. So sure, we can pay £1,000. We can pay $1,000 because if it's going to bring us our dreams, that's
Sure.
nothing. So
Yeah.
I think they do this and then they just disappear.
Right,
And
of course.
yeah.
And so you found the organization that you went with through a referral from someone who's actually been successful with that organization. Are they sort of a whole concierge style service that you go in, you meet with them, they do all of your health history, all of your blood work, all of your semen analysis, and then they say, great, this is where you are physically. Now here are the egg donors we have for you to choose from, and you go through
Exactly.
that process and do the whole fertilization of the eggs, freeze the eggs, beta test, and everything else.
Yeah,
And then the surrogate is chosen. Is that sort of how
exactly.
things went?
Exactly how it is, yeah. So this clinic, go on, you have been
So
speaking.
we were actually following the referral, we were invited to an initial sort of like 1 hour consultation, just free consultation to hear more about what they do, what the process would look like if we decided to sort of go with them as an organization. And it sounded spot on. It was what we were after. We actually went into that call, and I'd said to Pasan initially, I don't want to do this just yet. Let's give it a little bit longer. Maybe let's just try it out with our UK organizations for a bit longer, because going abroad is not cheap.
Nope.
And in my mind, if we went abroad, that would be it. There'd be no way of thinking about future children in the UK, for example. I thought
Logistically.
Well, not so much logistically, more I couldn't see, we're struggling to find a surrogate now.
Oh, so
If
surrogate
we
wouldn't want
had
to, if you've had a family, why would they help you when there's other people who haven't?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was sort of like we're now going abroad, and we didn't know at the time that we were going to be blessed with twins. And we
Right.
thought we could only afford one journey abroad, and we knew we wanted multiple babies.
Also, we forgot, so while doing this time as well, we found a Sri Lankan egg donor as well, through a Sri Lankan group, and she's lovely, and she's one of our really good friends now, and she was more than happy to do it. But then again, the clinic to kind of process all of that was horrendous as well. I mean, it kept it I think there was a point where like they made her feel bad as well. And it took so long. The communication was bad. They were telling her times to kind of come to the clinic at times where she said she can't work. So I think that was the reason why we thought, well, we got this egg donor as well. We don't have a surrogate, so there's another option we could always consider. But we ended up we didn't do that.
More on that clinic as well. They completely weren't. It's as if they'd never sort of never worked with homosexual couples before. It was completely ill set up. All the documentations were constantly referring to, first of all, the couple would always be the man, the woman.
And the woman,
it'd be the lady and her husband. All the correspondence we got would always be addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Fernando. There was at the point where I was going to be depositing semen. I think I had a semen analysis, and they wrote back as if I was as a donor and said, actually, this isn't going to work. I was like, I'm not a donor. This is just because you need me in your system in order to create embryos with eggs.
And I remember that guy, the doctor, or whoever the person was, like he wasn't very pleasant. He was making jokes which were not appropriate at all. And we're thinking, again, we're desperate. Like, we're going to keep them up.
Yeah.
Look, we don't want to piss these people off because they'll take longer. We don't know what will happen. So sure, be your misogynist self, like just whatever. I mean, it's bad in a way, but then when you're desperate,
We take a lot of microaggressions stacked one right on top of the other
Yeah.
when we're feeling desperate. And this feels like it's the only way that you get to
Yeah.
live your reality of becoming the parents the way you want to become parents. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know about babyREADY because you're listening to this podcast, so you know that we are all about queer family planning and helping you have the family of your dreams. But did you know that we don't abandon you once your baby arrives? We actually offer parenting coaching as well, and that's not just for the newborn phase, although we are there for that, but it's through toddlerhood and young children, tweens, and even through the teen years. When you need someone unbiased to lend an ear so that they can hear where your struggles truly are and help you come up with a path and a plan that feels truly right for you and your individual family, don't hesitate to reach out. We are always happy to be there for you. Visit us at www.babyready.info for more information.
I'm sorry, we digressed, didn't we? I should bring it back to the point.
That's okay. That's the idea of having a conversation. It's all good. We go all over the place.
So we're at the point where I took a little bit of getting on board to go to Cyprus. I knew if we had this conversation, we would be sort of saying we're moving away from the UK for good, almost certainly. You know, a bit of us still hoping that we in the future a surrogate might offer in the UK, and we can go down the track. Sort of we have a journey here in the UK, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. And
I wasn't like that. I was a Labrador puppy. Yes, baby, let's go, let's go, let's go.
I also knew that if we had that conversation, Pasan it would be from 0 to 100 in no time, because as he
100%.
he knows what he wants, and it'll happen. So we knew that would happen, and it did. We had our conversation. We liked what we heard. We were fully on board with everything we heard. But something which will be a recurring theme, I think we'll mention over the next few minutes, is up until the point that we actually were at the hospital when our surrogate was giving birth, we were never sure how much. We just couldn't be sure this was legitimate, and we were just constantly scared about the tens of thousands of pounds we were handing over, and is this a scam? Because as much as this had come from a recommendation from someone in the community, we didn't personally know that person either. It could have all just been part of an elaborate scam.
Absolutely.
We were scared all the way through.
I remember the first time we went in December when we came to do the DNA sample and testing, because they picked us up from the airport, and they thought, well, we've just been put in a van from the airport, picked up, and it's dark. We have no idea where we're going. We've never been to Cyprus before. They're just taking us. They could literally take us anywhere and keep us hostage. And I mean, every step we were very cautious. There was a lot of anxiety is the wrong word. I think there was a lot of hope and optimism. We were cautious.
Fair. As you should be. To be fair, you're traveling in a country you've never been to before, and in a vehicle with folks you don't know. I think you should be at the very
in a language we didn't
cautious.
speak either.
Right.
Although he's overdone it a bit. It was a taxi. It was a nice taxi, and it was a lovely hotel.
It was.
There you go. But it is all I'm sure, feeling overwhelming, just because it's also a step in the direction of actually making this happen. Right? So everything's heightened when you're in that state. Oh my gosh, this may actually be our dream starting to come true. So you are hyper aware.
Yeah.
But then when we were in the hotel, and the next day a representative came, and she was the loveliest person. So much reassurance, so much positivity, so much optimism, and kind of looked after us. We felt like she was just there to make sure that we were looked after, and just made sure that our emotional needs, everything was kind of met. And she was so lovely.
She was brilliant, and she just shared with us lots of sort of like her personal experiences with the organization that we were all then part of. She she came across as she genuinely was invested in us, in everyone's journey, or
The idea of families for people.
I love that.
I think most people in this organization, we've spoken to a few, and what they want as well is to be able to give people families. And we'll talk about a surrogate later on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this actually happened fairly fast since that meeting. So we had our online chat with the organization in October to hear more. We decided to go ahead. So we signed a contract later that month or maybe early November, at which point we handed over a deposit, which is probably about 5% of what would be the sort of the cost of the services. And then we went over in December. So we timed it for the start of our school holidays. We flew over on a Monday and we were there until Friday. And that was where Pasan's discussing sort of that experience there. It was just lovely to meet this lady from the organization, for her to tell us how it works and how everyone's all on the same team and everyone just wants babies. We went to a couple of clinics. So we saw where the IVF work would be taking place. Pasan deposited some samples. What else we do? We met a lawyer, the lawyer who'd help us this side in Cyprus with our applications. And we, I suppose, had a bit of a mini holiday whilst out there, enjoying some Cypriot sun in bitter December.
Yeah, necessary, right? At that time of year. So they did all of these health checks for you, then you fly home, and then everything else for the next bit is done, I assume, sort of by Zoom and that kind of thing. Like virtual meetings. Is that how you, or did you have to
No,
travel
so we
back?
didn't meet after that. So it was just emails. We just corresponded by email. There was never a Zoom call again.
Okay.
There wasn't, but I'm sure if we'd asked for one,
Right.
we could have done. But the sort of our work patterns, how we were sort of never together 9 till 5 anyway. It suited us sort of corresponding by email.
Excellent. So then,
and we got lots of updates throughout the pregnancy.
which you need to have, right? To sort of feel like you're connected with it. How did you choose a surrogate, or not a surrogate? Sorry, I'm still at egg donor. How did you choose an egg donor? Did they give you, if Pasan, you were the one whose semen's being used, they're your gametes. Were you then looking for an egg donor who reflected more of Damian's characteristics?
Absolutely. And there was always a thing. In my head, I have these things and they need to happen.
Right.
So that's always been the thing where I wanted to make sure that the family kind of represented us. So if it was going to be the Sri Lankan egg donor, I mean, it was going to be Sri Lankan because it was going to be Damian's with the egg donor in the UK. Because it was mine, we wanted to make sure that the egg donor was as close to Damian's features as possible. We were looking for a while and we couldn't exactly find the perfect description that I had in my head. This kind of kept delaying us, and then we thought, look, what do we want? Do we want this perfect model, or do we want a child? I think eventually we ended up kind of getting to as close to it as possible, close to Damian's kind of features, because they tell you we couldn't see this person. There were some where we could see, and that didn't work out for us. And we thought, I think that was looking back, that's kind of odd as well. We went for someone that we couldn't see compared to the ones that we could see. But we saw the features and the education, the characteristics, the health, everything's kind of declared there. So we went with that person, and obviously we've made the right choice.
Clearly you have. Did you have a lot of eggs and that fertilized to be healthy embryos?
So I think on the day of egg collection, I think 15 of them were harvest, of which they tested pretty much straight away. We were told that 10 of them were of quality that could potentially grow into healthy embryos. So they were sent to grow, and I think it was 5 of them that made it. Oh no, six that made it to day. Is it day 10 or day 15?
10.
Day 10, where they at which point you can have the extra testing. Maybe you know the name.
The PGA.
That's the one.
Yes.
So we had the testing. We were told we had 3 which were really healthy, and if transferred would have a good shot.
Have a high percentage of. So they still said, look, it's not guaranteed, but these are the ones. I mean, it's never guaranteed. So I think the quality was, what was it, 5AA or whatever the rating
Right.
was. So there
Yeah.
were 3 of similar standards there, and there were 2 male and 1 female.
So
There you
in
go.
Cyprus, like in some countries, gender is not revealed in those tests, but
Right.
in Cyprus, it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But does that make it harder? If you know what your options are, does it make it harder to choose which eggs you transfer?
I suppose a little bit, but which, yeah, I mean, you know the result already.
Yeah, I do.
The spoilers. Yeah, we've got a beautiful son and daughter. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
did it make it harder?
Not for me. I just want, like, just give me the kids. Give me the kids. You
Yeah.
make
Put
the
them all
decision.
in. Put them
Yeah,
all
put
in.
them
We'll
all
see
in.
what we get. We'll see what we. So you found your donor, your egg donor, you have your eggs, you have your healthy embryos ready to go. You choose a surrogate. Was that an
So
easier process than the egg donor, or?
yeah, so the next step was this the surrogate matching, I think they call it. So I think there we weren't given, I mean, we were still given a choice, but there was nothing for us to kind of choose.
Right.
They, I think, gave us a few options, and we said, like, whoever was happy to, because they need to be happy with a twin pregnancy as well.
Right.
Because we were going to
You wanted
go
to
for
transfer two. Right.
transfers, because they told us if you put 1 in, then chance of it being successful might be slim. If you put 2, at least 1 would be successful, but you might be twins as well. And we were open to any and all options.
Right.
I mean, we were really hoping, but I certainly was really hoping for twins. It's just, yeah, I mean, loads of reasons, but I mean, one is we just wanted to have our complete family. It's been a long journey to get to where we were, and still very much ongoing. Right now, we are in Cyprus. We've been here for a couple of months whilst we try to get home. The thought of trying to sort of just logistically, never mind emotionally, do this again down the line, I just with a young child,
Right.
seems, really hard, impossible. So if we can sort of complete our family or build it up in two in one go, then great.
Nope, that does make sense to me. So you find your surrogate. Clearly, you've transferred to 2, and you were successful with 2. How far through the pregnancy did your surrogate get? Did she get all the way to with twins? I'm gonna guess like 37, 38 weeks, or
37 weeks.
nice. So a full term pregnancy then for twins, which is nice because that takes your worry down a bit and means that then the babies are born, and if all is good, then they're released from hospital pretty swiftly without having to spend time in the care nursery. Excellent. Wow. So things went well. Were you in the room when your children were born, or I don't know how things go in Cyprus. I didn't. Did you build any kind of a connection with your surrogate?
So you were offered to, if you want to sort of have a Zoom call with your surrogate like once or twice during the course of the pregnancy. It was so we were aware that she didn't speak English. So we knew that could be a little bit tricky on communication. But I'd sort of been reading into lots of stories of surrogacy journeys, and one stuck with me. It was the story itself is a lot longer. It's about a lady who came over from Ukraine during the war, who was a surrogate, and she came to actually live with the family for who she was carrying a child for.
Wow.
But before that, back before the war, she'd spoken to the family over Zoom, and this article was written from the perspective of the mother. And she sort of said at this point when she spoke over Zoom that the surrogate just seemed really a bit uncomfortable having this conversation, and the to-be mum felt a little bit uncomfortable having put her in that situation, that there was perhaps a bit of almost like a power dynamic, and that the surrogate just wanted to convey as best she could that she was looking after her children, but it was just tricky with the language barrier. So for that reason, we decided we sort of didn't want to put our surrogate into any position where she might feel uncomfortable, or even sort of ask the question, do you want to, where she would probably feel obliged to say yes.
I think in a way they just want to kind of get on with being pregnant and just having the children
Right.
for you, not have a they don't want to. I mean, maybe we're speaking out of turn, but maybe perhaps they don't want to have a relationship. They just want to
Yeah.
have these children because it's a transaction and
Right.
get the money, and then maybe that's the case as well. So we weren't sure, and we didn't kind of want to poke that bear, and in case we kind of offend or kind of make
Right.
it comfortable for them. So we just thought we'll kind of leave it as it is.
And when there's a language barrier, it's impossible to know.
Yeah.
If all of you spoke the same language, it would be
Mhm.
easier to hear even the tone with which she responded.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
when
the
you asked a
nuances
question.
would be kind of
Sure, 100%.
Yeah.
That makes
What was
sense.
important to us was knowing that she was sort of happy and
Looked
healthy and
after.
being looked after, and we were regularly asking those questions to the organization. And in fact, that was something that was really important to us before we signed up. We took with our organization. We really wanted to understand like who these surrogates were, what their state was, what's going on with them in this time, and we loved what we heard. The surrogates really looked after during those 9 months. They're often coming from overseas and actually don't live in Cyprus.
Oh, okay.
But often, oh sorry, we've got a little baby crying.
It's not-
Often, that's not just go get one. Often, so they come over to Cyprus and they are looked after by the organization. They're put up in a nice apartment. In fact, actually, we went to see that apartment. Our surrogate invited us over after birth.
Oh, nice.
And it was a lovely place. They put up with another surrogate who's on a journey with a different couple or a different individual. And if they have young family, they bring them over too, and all live together for 9 months. Whatever they want, they just need to ask, and it's theirs. Because everyone just wants surrogates to be healthy and happy.
Right.
Yeah, and they're doing such an incredible thing for intended parents that
Right.
they want to be looked after. So we actually didn't speak to our surrogate throughout the pregnancy, but come the birth, because your question was, were we there for the birth?
Right.
We were actually, we picked up from where we were staying. We'd been in Cyprus for a couple of days before the birth.
Hold on, before that, there's a little funny story there. So they came to pick us up in the taxi, and the surrogate was there, and the person in the clinic was there. Surrogate was sitting at the front, and she came out of the car with her big belly with twins.
With twins, yes.
And Damien still didn't realize that was a surrogate.
I didn't see the belly. I didn't see her. I was.
And he asked me, "Did you
getting
realize that
everything in
was
the
a
car."
surrogate?" I was like, yes. Like, did you not see that huge? So that was the first time we saw the surrogate.
Right.
That was the first time maybe she saw us. Maybe she's seen photos, and then it was slightly awkward as well because the conversation. I mean,
Right.
the person in the clinic and the surrogate were talking, and she seemed fine. She wasn't in any distress, and the hospital was 15 minutes away. Yeah, in fact, she was kind of helping us with our luggage into the car as well. David was like, "Oh,"
I was like, no, give that back, thank you.
That's right. You're already carrying some of our precious cargo.
Enough.
We can lift our own bags. Thank you.
She was so sweet. She had a present for these two as well. She had some clothes for them, and we're like, "Oh my God!" Like, no, yeah.
That's so sweet.
It was so
I
beautiful.
love that.
What we hadn't realized was from that car journey, and then in getting to the lift and going into her room, and then later being wheeled, she was actually sort of like filming her experiences and making us a little video, which she shared with us after the birth, and it was absolutely beautiful.
That's amazing. That's what a gift. I mean, obviously what a gift. She's carrying your children for you, but to also have that foresight thinking they're going to want to remember this. They don't know that they're going to want to remember this.
Yeah.
But they will, right? I think that's pretty
And this was her first journey as well. And so we were speaking to her through Google Translate. So she was Russian.
Oh, okay.
She would put it, and we would message her back, and it was so lovely because obviously the clinic could tell you all sorts of things, and yes, of course they looked after, but to hear it from the horse's mouth, the fact that she was, and and this kind of made everything complete for us when she said, from this money that I've earned, I'm going to go home and buy a small apartment for my children
Oh,
and I could live in. And that just made it whole for us. We've
Yeah.
got our family. She's able to kind of look after her family in she's got a house as a result of it. And she was saying, but she was from Kazakhstan, and she was
Okay.
saying you can't make an honest living because of the government.
Right.
This amount of money she's able to buy a house outright, and that's
Amazing.
obviously it's a lot of money for her there. And the fact that she was saying, lots of people say this is a bad thing. I don't think that. I think this is a noble cause. I mean, that's what the Google Translator said.
Sure.
This is a noble cause. I think this is a noble cause. Why wouldn't you do this for a family if you can?
Yeah.
Is what the translation
Yeah.
kind of said to
Oh,
us.
I agree.
That just kind of obviously made us tear, and
Yeah.
it made us feel so good that we didn't just exploit. I've just seen a message on our Instagram saying adopt this. That just come out just now saying you should adopt. You should, like, this is exploiting women's bodies. So it's quite nice to kind of see that we didn't exploit someone, and we kind of gave someone, and obviously we didn't force anyone
No.
to do this, but the fact that we were able to give them a better life as well as for
Right.
us to have a better life. I mean, this has made our lives so much better, like words
Exponentially
can't
better, right?
express.
Yeah, exactly.
So everyone wins in this.
It's very true. And everyone has an opinion. Whether we want it or not, everyone has an opinion. And you've been very open and forthcoming on your social media pages to say, ask us questions, we'll answer them. Unfortunately, when you invite people to ask you questions, you are going to invite the people who aren't asking you questions for the right reasons. They're asking you questions because they want to push forward their own agenda. And you just want to share your journey with the world so that other people can have the hope that you had. I mean, it should be as simple as that, shouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
we feel so lucky to be here, to have gone through our journey. We feel like we've won, we've hit the jackpot, and we want to, help line up those sevens for other people.
And I think just being there and being a reassuring kind of face or faces to people, because we didn't have that. Obviously, we had that person again. They could have been part of the scam as well, and we move forward with hope and optimism, as I'm sure most people would, and then they're scammed into things. So I think kind of showing our Instagram page and kind of showing, here's us, where we're teachers, where we're not a scam, we're real people, and if we can do it, and we're nothing special, we're here to help you, and we're here to answer your questions. Obviously, we can't help you financially, but we can help you with just answering questions and reassuring you can have this, and here's how we did it. Hopefully it'll help you as well.
Yeah. And that's just a gift of humanity, right? And I think that's pretty amazing. I personally think it's pretty amazing that you are sharing your story with the world, because when you were in this place of trying to make the decisions, you relied on someone else sharing something of their experience with you to be able to move your journey forward. So what you're doing is paying it forward. That's just
good karma.
It is good karma. It is good karma. You've got some restless little feet there. And so, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want you to remind everyone who's listening what your Instagram handle is so that they can see your beautiful babies and have a look at your story. And then after you share that, I want you to tell me each what your very favorite part of parenting is so far.
So our Instagram handle is dads2wins. That's DADS, the number 2, WINS, dads2wins.
And I mean, every single bit of this is amazing. I think before obviously we had them, in my head I was thinking, right, we need to make sure that we have a nanny, a night nurse, we need help with all of this. And obviously being in Cyprus, in a different country, we didn't have that. And I'm so glad that's happened, because I wouldn't want to have missed any of the diaper changes, any of the cries, any of the getting ups in the 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Because I mean, bear in mind, it's only been 7 weeks, so I'm sure I might change my mind. And
Right.
where, at least for my part, I'm sure Damien can speak for himself, but I've loved every moment, and I wouldn't want anyone else to do a burp, a cry, a feed, a nappy change. I feel like that's stealing from me.
Right. Yep.
Just to be clear,
Absolutely.
nannies and night nurses were never on the cards. He talked about this, but I don't know.
In my head, they were.
I am his accountant. I do his tax returns.
He
There
does.
is no way that was ever going to be possible.
So in every
There you go.
relationship, there has to be a dreamer and a
Right.
person who makes those dreams come true.
100%.
I'm the former, and Damien is definitely the latter. If it wasn't for Damien, we wouldn't have any of this. But if it wasn't for me, we wouldn't have the dreams to go and achieve that.
Sure. That's right. That's how you navigate life together, right? The yin to the yang. What about you, Damien?
I mean, right now you won't be able to see me in the podcast, but I'm enjoying one big cuddle, and
Yeah.
every one of these cuddles is so precious. And we're loving each and every one every day. But I mean, as Pasan said, it absolutely is all of it. I just find myself staring into these guys' eyes just all the time, just thinking, oh my goodness, how lucky are we? We have won, and we just can't believe it that we are here where we are. And I sort of look back to that version of myself sort of 15 years ago where I thought I would, well, I would not have children. It wasn't
Right.
really an option. And just that has just come to life, and here we are, and I've got my two little babies. Having children as two gay dads is completely normal. In fact, it's more than normal. It's awesome. Like it's been great for these guys. You know, they get to be unique. And as much as I love being part of this fun little club. And I'm just really hoping this club gets a whole lot bigger, because everyone can be parents, and everyone has the right to be parents in whatever form that looks like.
Everyone who wants to be parents
Yeah.
should have the opportunity to be parents, because not everyone wants to be
Absolutely.
parents as well. People have their own lives, and not everyone does. And everyone who wants to should have the opportunity and access and freedom to have that, because that should be a basic human right.
Yep. I fully agree. Here's hoping, right? Fingers crossed that the world figures out how to continue moving forward instead of stepping backwards in time. Thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with me today and letting me look at those beautiful little angels while we're chatting. Has been pretty great for me.
Thank you so much for having us.
We've had a great time.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for giving us a platform to kind of share our story and kind of share it with people.
It's my honor. Thank you.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable pasts and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.